Welcome to Unheard Stories, where we uncover shocking tales of betrayal, revenge, and redemption. Before we dive in, let me ask, where are you watching from? Comment below and let us know. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another jaw-dropping story. Today's story will leave you speechless. Imagine spending years building a life with someone you thought you could trust, only to find out they've been hiding the ultimate betrayal. Secrets, lies, and a love affair that tore a marriage apart. But this isn't just about heartbreak. It's about revenge. Our protagonist didn't just discover his wife's infidelity, he orchestrated a masterful plan to expose her lies and make her feel the full weight of her betrayal. With a simple, symbolic gesture, he turned the tables in a way no one saw coming, leaving both his wife and her lover shattered. Get ready for a roller coaster of emotions as we unravel how one man's pain turned into the ultimate act of calculated justice. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss a single detail. Ethan Turner had always believed he had built the perfect life. A successful CEO of a thriving tech company, he married Olivia, a woman he had fallen deeply in love with during their university days. Their life together seemed like a dream, an elegant home in the suburbs, frequent vacations to exotic locations, and a bond that, to outsiders, appeared unbreakable. Olivia was the picture of sophistication. With her radiant smile and effortless charm, she fit perfectly into Ethan's world. As an art gallery curator, she brought creativity and vibrancy into their relationship, balancing Ethan's pragmatic, business-focused personality. Together, they were the couple everyone admired, the ones who seemed to have it all. But cracks started to form in their seemingly flawless marriage. At first, they were small, barely noticeable to anyone but Ethan. Olivia's laughter, once genuine and full of warmth, began to feel forced. She started spending more time at gallery events, returning home later than usual, often brushing off Ethan's questions with vague explanations about networking. Ethan convinced himself it was just a phase. Olivia was ambitious, and her passion for art often required late nights and social engagements. But as the weeks turned into months, her behavior became harder to ignore. She was constantly glued to her phone, her once shared smiles now reserved for someone on the other end of her messages. Ethan noticed her text notifications lighting up at odd hours, her screen tilted away from his view. When he asked about it, she'd dismissively say, "Just work stuff," and change the subject. There were more signs, subtle but glaring to a man who had built his success by paying attention to details. The way Olivia would suddenly fall silent when he entered the room, or how she became defensive over the smallest questions. Ethan started to notice a shift in their physical intimacy too. Where there once was closeness, there was now distance, her excuses piling up with each passing day. Still, Ethan held on to the belief that they could fix whatever was happening. He planned surprise date nights, weekend getaways, even left her little notes reminding her how much he loved her. Olivia smiled and thanked him, but her gratitude felt hollow, her mind seemingly elsewhere. The tipping point came one evening when Ethan returned home earlier than usual. Olivia was in the study, her back turned as she laughed softly at her phone screen. She didn't hear him enter, and he froze in the doorway, watching her shoulders shake with amusement. He couldn't remember the last time she had laughed like that with him. "Who's making you laugh so much?" Ethan asked casually, breaking the silence. Olivia jumped, her hand instinctively locking her phone screen. "Oh, just a funny meme," she said, her tone overly light. Ethan didn't press her, but the sinking feeling in his stomach refused to go away. From that moment, Ethan began piecing together the puzzle. He started noticing every small inconsistency. The nights Olivia came home smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't his, the way she carefully avoided eye contact when he asked about her day, and the suspiciously long list of gallery events that didn't seem to match her usual schedule. The final blow came during a family gathering. Olivia and Ethan's brother, Liam, seemed unusually friendly, laughing at inside jokes and exchanging lingering glances. At first, Ethan brushed it off as harmless camaraderie, but the nagging thought in the back of his mind refused to quiet. Late one night, Ethan made a decision that felt both invasive and necessary. As Olivia slept beside him, he reached for her phone. His hands trembled slightly as he unlocked it, knowing he might find answers he wasn't ready for. His heart sank as he scrolled through her messages. Among the mundane texts and work emails were a series of conversations with Liam. Their tone was unmistakable, playful, intimate, and filled with inside jokes that bordered on flirtatious. The messages weren't overtly explicit, but they didn't need to be. Ethan could read between the lines. From that point on, Ethan's perspective shifted entirely. He began quietly observing Olivia's every move, her words and actions taking on new meanings. He noted the way she dressed up for seemingly casual gallery nights, her habit of checking her reflection one too many times before leaving. Determined to uncover the full truth, Ethan took things further. One evening, when Olivia claimed she'd be working late at the gallery, Ethan decided to follow her. His suspicions were confirmed when he saw her car parked at an upscale restaurant miles away from her supposed destination. Inside, seated at a dimly lit corner table, was Olivia and Liam. Ethan stayed outside, gripping the steering wheel as he watched their silhouettes through the window. Olivia leaned in close to Liam, her expression soft and full of affection. Liam laughed, placing a hand on hers. The sight was enough to turn Ethan's stomach. That moment, the perfect life Ethan thought he had built came crashing down. His wife's betrayal wasn't just a blow to their marriage, it was a betrayal of trust, family, and the life they had built together. Yet, instead of confronting them in the heat of anger, Ethan made a decision. If Olivia and Liam thought they could deceive him, he would show them just how wrong they were. Ethan didn't just want to expose their betrayal, he wanted to make them feel the full weight of their actions. Ethan Turner wasn't a man who acted on impulse. Years of navigating the business world had taught him the value of patience and precision. So when he confirmed his suspicions about Olivia and Liam's affair, he didn't lash out immediately. Instead, he began planning. His goal wasn't just to uncover the truth but to ensure there was no room for denial or manipulation. He wanted clarity and consequences. It started with small things. Ethan began tracking Olivia's patterns, noting when she left the house and where she claimed to be going. She often mentioned gallery events, meetings with donors, or after-hours work at the office. However, her stories didn't always align. One night, when she said she'd be at a gallery opening downtown, Ethan called a mutual friend who frequently attended such events. "Olivia?" "No, I didn't see her there tonight," the friend said, her tone laced with confusion. That was all Ethan needed. He decided to dig deeper. Late one evening, when Olivia left for yet another networking dinner, Ethan accessed her computer. Years of building a cybersecurity empire had given him skills most people could only dream of, and Olivia had never been particularly tech-savvy. Within minutes, he was combing through her emails and browsing history. What he found wasn't overt, but it was enough. Flights booked under Liam's name to cities where Olivia had supposedly gone for art shows. Hotel reservations for two when she claimed she'd stayed alone. Even a shared online folder with photos of the two of them together, smiling, relaxed, and intimate. Ethan's chest tightened as he scrolled through the images. Each click felt like a dagger twisting deeper. His wife and brother hadn't just betrayed him, they had built an entire world behind his back. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he stared at the ceiling, his mind racing with memories of their life together. Every laugh, every kiss, every promise, they all felt like lies now, poisoned by the knowledge of her betrayal. The next day, Ethan decided to confirm his findings in person. Olivia mentioned she'd be meeting a new artist at a downtown cafe. He kissed her goodbye as usual, masking the anger and heartbreak boiling beneath the surface. Once she left, Ethan followed her car at a safe distance. He felt a mix of dread and determination as he drove. He didn't want to believe what he already knew, but he needed to see it with his own eyes. After 20 minutes, Olivia parked outside an upscale restaurant. Ethan found a spot nearby and watched as she stepped out of her car, smoothing her dress and checking her reflection in the window. She looked radiant, far more effort than she typically put into casual meetings. A moment later, Liam arrived, his carefree smile as infuriating as it was familiar. He greeted Olivia with a brief kiss, their body language intimate and unguarded. They walked into the restaurant together, completely oblivious to the fact that Ethan was watching. Ethan sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. A wave of emotions crashed over him, anger, heartbreak, disbelief, but he forced himself to stay composed. He wasn't going to confront them here, not in a scene fueled by raw emotion. Instead, he planned something far more deliberate. Ethan walked into the restaurant shortly after them, careful to choose a table far enough away to avoid detection but close enough to observe. From his vantage point, he could see Olivia and Liam laughing, their faces lit with a kind of ease and affection he hadn't seen in his wife for years. The waiter approached Ethan and he placed an order, but his mind wasn't on the food. As he sat there watching the two people who had betrayed him most, an idea began to form. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his wedding ring, the symbol of a bond Olivia had shattered. He called the waiter back over, his tone calm but firm. "I need you to do something for me," Ethan said, handing over the ring. The waiter hesitated, glancing at the small piece of jewelry. "Sir?" Ethan gave a faint smile, though there was no warmth in it. "Take this to the woman at that table," he said, nodding toward Olivia. "Just place it in front of her. Don't say anything else." The waiter looked confused but nodded, pocketing the ring before walking toward Olivia and Liam's table. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his heart pounding in his chest as he watched the scene unfold. When the waiter arrived at their table, Olivia looked up with a polite smile, likely expecting another glass of wine or a dessert menu. But when the waiter placed the ring on the table, her expression froze. For a moment she just stared at it, confusion clouding her features. Then, as if in slow motion, she recognized the ring. Her face went pale, her eyes darting around the room until they landed on Ethan. Their gazes locked, and in that moment Ethan saw a mixture of emotions flicker across her face: shock, fear, guilt. Liam, oblivious to the significance of the ring, leaned forward with a puzzled expression. "What's this about?" he asked, his voice casual. But Olivia didn't respond. She couldn't. Her eyes remained fixed on Ethan, who sat calmly in his chair, his expression unreadable. Ethan held her gaze for a few more seconds before standing. He didn't need to say anything. The ring in his presence had said it all. He walked out of the restaurant, leaving Olivia and Liam to deal with the weight of their actions. He didn't look back, but he could feel the eyes of other diners on him, sensing the gravity of the situation even if they didn't know the details. Outside, Ethan took a deep breath, the cool night air filling his lungs. For the first time in weeks he felt a strange sense of relief. The truth was out, and now it was Olivia and Liam who had to face the consequences. As he drove home, Ethan's mind was already racing with the next steps. The ring was just the beginning. There was still much more to be done to ensure they truly understood the depth of their betrayal. The restaurant buzzed with quiet conversation, the low hum of laughter and clinking glasses filling the air. But for Olivia, time seemed to freeze the moment the waiter set the wedding ring on the table. Her hand trembled as she reached for the small, familiar piece of gold, her face draining of color as she realized what it meant. Across the room, Ethan sat motionless, his calm gaze locked onto her. He wasn't angry, not visibly at least. There was no shouting, no dramatic gestures. Instead, his expression was eerily composed, which only made the moment more unnerving. Olivia's eyes flickered between the ring and Ethan, her thoughts racing. How long had he known? How much did he know? Panic crept into her chest, her carefully constructed facade crumbling in the face of the truth she could no longer avoid. "Olivia?" Liam's voice broke through the tension. He leaned closer, glancing at the ring with a puzzled expression. "What's going on? Whose ring is that?" Olivia's throat tightened as she tried to form a response, but no words came out. Liam followed her gaze across the room, his confusion deepening when his eyes landed on Ethan. "Wait, is that your husband?" Liam whispered, his tone low but urgent. Olivia nodded faintly, her fingers gripping the edge of the table as though it might steady her. Liam's carefree demeanor evaporated in an instant, replaced by unease. He glanced around the restaurant, suddenly aware of how exposed they were. Ethan rose from his chair, the slow, deliberate movement drawing Olivia's full attention. She felt like prey caught in the gaze of a predator, helpless and cornered. As he walked toward their table, her heart pounded so loudly she was certain he could hear it. When Ethan reached them, he didn't sit. Instead, he stood at the edge of the table, looking down at Olivia and Liam with an air of quiet authority. "Good evening," he said, his tone polite but laced with icy finality. Neither Olivia nor Liam responded immediately. Olivia's mouth opened, but the words stuck in her throat. Liam, clearly out of his depth, attempted a weak smile. Ethan held up a hand, cutting him off without even looking in his direction. His eyes were fixed on Olivia, who couldn't bring herself to meet his gaze. "I won't take much of your time," Ethan said, his voice calm but unyielding. He gestured toward the ring on the table. "I thought it was only fair to return this. Clearly, it means more to me than it does to you." Olivia's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away, unwilling to cry in front of him. "Ethan, Don't," he interrupted, his tone sharpening just enough to silence her. "I'm not here for explanations or excuses. I'm here to make something very clear." Liam shifted uncomfortably in his chair, glancing at Olivia for guidance, but she was too overwhelmed to respond. Ethan finally turned his attention to Liam, his gaze piercing. "I trusted you," Ethan said, each word measured and deliberate. "You're my brother. Or at least you were. That trust is gone now, and so are you. From this point forward, you're nothing to me." Liam's face flushed, but he didn't argue. There was no defense he could offer that wouldn't sound hollow. Ethan returned his focus to Olivia, his expression hardening. And you, he said, his voice quieter but no less intense. You had everything. A home. A partner who loved you. A life we built together. He gestured subtly toward Liam. And you threw it away. For what? Olivia's lips trembled as she tried to respond. Ethan, I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, Ethan said, cutting her off again. You made your choices, Olivia. And now you'll face the consequences. She stared at him, her tears threatening to spill over. Please just let me explain. There's nothing to explain, Ethan said coldly. I've seen everything I need to see. I know everything I need to know. He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice. The house, the accounts, the life we built, it's all protected. You'll leave with nothing, just as you left me with nothing. Olivia's breath caught in her throat, her tears spilling over despite her best efforts. She shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan, please, don't do this. We can fix this. Ethan straightened, his expression unmoved. Fix this? He gave a humorless laugh. You can't fix something you've already destroyed. This isn't a game, Olivia. You made your bed and now you'll lie in it? Liam, sensing the gravity of Ethan's words, shifted uncomfortably again. Ethan, look, this isn't all her fault. Ethan's gaze snapped to Liam, silencing him instantly. Don't you dare try to defend yourself, Ethan said, his tone razor-sharp. You knew exactly what you were doing and you did it anyway. There's nothing left to say. The silence that followed was suffocating. Olivia's tears fell freely now, her composure shattered. Liam looked down at the table, his confidence completely eroded. Ethan stepped back from the table, his final words ringing with cold finality. You both made your choices. Now you'll live with them. Without another word, Ethan turned and walked away, leaving Olivia and Liam in stunned silence. As he exited the restaurant, he could feel the weight of judgmental stares from the other diners, but he didn't care. This moment wasn't about them, it was about reclaiming his dignity and setting the stage for what came next. Outside, the cool night air hit Ethan's face, but it did little to cool the fire burning in his chest. He didn't feel victorious or vindicated, just empty. But he knew that this was only the beginning. Olivia and Liam thought they had won, that they could deceive him and move on with their lives. They were wrong. Ethan had more than just the truth on his side. He had the power, the resources, and the determination to ensure they paid for their betrayal in full. As Ethan walked to his car, he couldn't help but feel a small spark of satisfaction. He wasn't just a victim of their lies. He was the architect of their downfall, and the next chapter of their lives would be defined by the consequences of the choices they had made. The house, once filled with warmth and laughter, now loomed like a hollow shell of what it used to be. Olivia sat on the edge of his bed, surrounded by half-packed suitcases. Each item she placed inside felt like another nail in the coffin of her life as she had known it. The photographs of their vacations, the gifts Ethan had given her over the years, even the soft throw blanket they had picked out together, all were painful reminders of what she had thrown away. Ethan had been clear, she had until the end of the week to leave the house. And he hadn't been bluffing. The prenup, something Olivia had once dismissed as a formality, now came back to haunt her. It wasn't just a legal document, it was a declaration of her worst fears come true. With the evidence of her infidelity, she had forfeited everything. The house, the accounts, the stability she had taken for granted, all of it was gone. The first few nights after Ethan's confrontation were unbearable. She stayed in a guest room, avoiding him entirely. When she crossed paths with him in the hallway, his expression was cold and unreadable. He didn't yell or lash out, but that was worse. His silence carried a weight that crushed her. On her last night in the house, Olivia couldn't sleep. Memories of their life together replayed in her mind, vivid and unrelenting. She remembered their first anniversary, when Ethan surprised her with a candlelit dinner on the rooftop of their first apartment. She thought of the late nights they'd spent talking about their future, their dreams intertwining seamlessly. And now those dreams were nothing but ashes. When the morning came, Olivia packed the last of her belongings and left the house. She turned once, looking back at the home that had been her sanctuary. The life she'd built with Ethan was now out of reach, and she had no one to blame but herself. The fallout came quickly. Olivia moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of town. Gone were the luxuries she had grown accustomed to, the spacious walk-in closets, the pristine garden, the security of knowing Ethan was always there to catch her when she fell. Financially, she was in freefall. With no access to Ethan's accounts, she was forced to rely on her own limited savings, which dwindled faster than she anticipated. Her job at the gallery provided enough to keep her afloat, but the once vibrant workplace now felt suffocating. Whispers and stolen glances from co-workers reminded her that her affair with Liam had become common knowledge. The art world, which had once been her escape, now felt like a prison. Invitations to events dried up, as many of her professional connections were also tied to Ethan. Clients, donors, and colleagues who had once respected her began keeping their distance. Emotionally, Olivia was unraveling. Every day was a struggle to hold herself together, to push through the crushing weight of regret and guilt. She missed Ethan, not just the stability he provided but the man himself. His strength, his kindness, the way he had always supported her dreams. She hadn't realized just how much she had relied on him until he was gone. Liam, who had once seemed like an exciting escape, quickly revealed his true colors. Their relationship, built on lies and deceit, couldn't withstand the fallout. Without the secrecy and thrill of sneaking around, they were left with the harsh reality of their choices. Arguments erupted over money, blame, and the emptiness of their future together. Within weeks, they had parted ways, their so-called love crumbling under the weight of the destruction they had caused. Desperate to make amends, Olivia tried reaching out to Ethan. At first, it was through text. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. Please, can we talk? I need you to understand that I didn't mean for this to happen." There was no response. When her texts went unanswered, she sent an email. "Ethan, I know I hurt you in ways I can never take back, but I need you to hear me out. I don't want this to be how our story ends." Still no reply. In a final act of desperation, she called him. The line rang and rang before going to voicemail. "Ethan, please. I just want to talk. Even if you don't want to forgive me, I need you to know how sorry I am." Ethan's silence was deafening. He didn't block her, but he didn't engage either. To him, her attempts at reconciliation were meaningless. He had made up his mind and there was no going back. Olivia began to spiral. Nights were spent staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying every mistake she had made. Days were filled with a numbing monotony, her routine offering no solace. Even painting, her lifelong passion, brought her no comfort. Each stroke of the brush reminded her of the life she had once shared with Ethan, the man who had always believed in her talent. As weeks turned into months, Olivia found herself haunted by memories of their life together. The way Ethan used to hold her hand during long walks, the nights they stayed up late planning their future, the quiet moments of love that now felt like a distant dream. She realized too late that she had traded something priceless for an illusion of freedom. Her regret became a constant companion, a weight she carried with her everywhere she went. She thought about reaching out to mutual friends for support, but most of them had sided with Ethan. Even her own family expressed disappointment in her choices, their calls growing less frequent as they struggled to reconcile the Olivia they knew with the one who had betrayed her husband. One day, as Olivia sat alone in her apartment, a letter she had written to Ethan sat unfinished on the table. She wanted to apologize again, to plead for some form of closure, but she knew deep down that it wouldn't matter. Ethan had moved on, and she was left to face the consequences of her actions alone. The realization hit her like a wave: she had lost everything. The security of her marriage, the respect of her peers, even her sense of self, all gone because of choices she couldn't take back. For the first time in years, Olivia allowed herself to cry openly, her sobs filling the empty apartment. She cried for what she had lost, for the man she had hurt, and for the person she used to be. But as the tears subsided, she was left with nothing but silence. The only thing she could do now was live with the consequences of her betrayal and hope that, one day, she might find a way to rebuild. Ethan Turner stood in his new office, gazing out at the city skyline. The last 6 months had been transformative, a whirlwind of change that he hadn't expected but had embraced fully. He had left the house he once shared with Olivia, choosing to start fresh in a sleek penthouse in the heart of the city. It wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a declaration to himself that he was no longer tethered to the life he'd left behind. Mercer Tech, the company he had built from the ground up, became both his refuge and his playground. Throwing himself into work, Ethan spearheaded new projects, expanded into international markets, and secured partnerships that elevated the company to new heights. The focus and drive he once channeled into his marriage were now fueling his professional success, and the results were undeniable. Despite his outward accomplishments, Ethan knew he couldn't ignore the internal work he needed to do. Betrayal wasn't something a person simply shrugged off, it left scars and he was determined to heal them. He began attending therapy, something he had once dismissed as unnecessary. Sitting in those sessions, unpacking years of suppressed emotions, he found clarity. "You didn't fail, Ethan," his therapist had told him during one particularly difficult session. Her choices were hers alone. You can acknowledge your pain without carrying the burden of her actions. Those words stayed with him. Slowly but surely, Ethan began to let go of the anger and heartbreak that had consumed him. He started prioritizing self-care, picking up old hobbies he had neglected during his marriage. He returned to playing the piano, something he had loved in his youth, and even started running again, finding solace in the steady rhythm of his feet hitting the pavement. One evening at a charity gala organized by Mercer Tech, Ethan's life took an unexpected turn. The event was buzzing with energy, a room filled with influential figures from business and philanthropy. Ethan, ever the composed host, mingled effortlessly with the crowd. That's when he met Claire Bennett. She was a marketing consultant for one of Mercer Tech's new partners, and there was something about her that immediately caught his attention. Claire was different, confident yet unpretentious, with a sharp wit that matched Ethan's own. They struck up a conversation, and what started as casual small talk quickly became something more. Claire had a way of making him feel at ease, her laughter infectious and her perspective refreshing. She wasn't just beautiful, she was grounded, with a passion for her work that mirrored Ethan's own dedication. Over the next few weeks, their connection deepened. They started meeting for coffee, then dinners, their conversations flowing effortlessly. Claire wasn't just a distraction, she was a reminder that life could offer second chances. One evening, as they walked through a park near his penthouse, Claire turned to him and said, "You're different from the man I first met at the gala." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "You seemed closed off back then. Like you were carrying something heavy. But now it's like you've finally set it down." Ethan paused, her words sinking in. She was right. For the first time in years he felt lighter. "I think I have," he admitted. Claire smiled, taking his hand. "Good. Because you deserve better than what you've been through." Ethan's journey wasn't just about moving forward, it was about reflecting on the past and finding peace with it. He no longer felt anger toward Olivia and Liam. Instead, he saw their betrayal as a painful but necessary chapter that had ultimately set him free. There were moments when memories of Olivia would surface. Her laughter, the way she used to light up a room, but those memories no longer held power over him. They were simply pieces of a life that no longer existed. One day, as Ethan was cleaning out old boxes from his storage unit, he stumbled upon a photo album from their early years together. Flipping through the pages, he felt a pang of nostalgia but no desire to return to that time. He closed the album and set it aside, ready to let it gather dust. Meanwhile, he knew from mutual acquaintances that Olivia's life hadn't improved. She was struggling to rebuild, stuck in a cycle of regret and self-pity. Ethan felt no satisfaction in her suffering, only indifference. Her choices had led her to this point, and it was no longer his concern. Ethan's relationship with Claire continued to flourish. She brought joy and balance to his life, and he found himself opening up to her in ways he never thought he could after Olivia. They built something real, honest and unburdened by secrets. One evening, as they sat on his balcony overlooking the city, Ethan realized he had truly moved on. He turned to Claire, a genuine smile on his face. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," he admitted. Claire leaned against him, her voice soft. "That's because you didn't let the past define you. You chose to build something new." Ethan nodded, the weight of the last year finally lifting completely. He had found his peace and with it, a new sense of purpose. Betrayal is one of the deepest wounds a person can experience. It shakes the foundation of trust and forces us to reevaluate everything we thought we knew. But as Ethan's story shows, betrayal doesn't have to define you. It can be the catalyst for growth, self-discovery, and even new beginnings. Ethan didn't let his wife's infidelity and his brother's deceit destroy him. Instead, he channeled his pain into rebuilding his life, focusing on what truly mattered: his career, his self-worth, and the relationships that brought him genuine happiness. By letting go of the past, he found the strength to move forward and create a future that was brighter than he ever imagined. Olivia, on the other hand, remained trapped in the consequences of her choices. Her regret served as a reminder of the importance of honesty, loyalty, and the irreparable damage betrayal can cause. This story is a testament to resilience and the power of choosing self-respect over bitterness. Ethan's journey shows that even in the face of unimaginable pain, it's possible to rise above and build something better. What would you do if you were in Ethan's shoes? Would you confront the betrayal head-on, or take a different path? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more powerful stories like this one.